Hello, everybody. Welcome to another adventure in history. Hope everybody's having a beautiful and wonderful time zone today, tonight, this afternoon, this morning, whenever you are. I'm here. You can end the stream now. Tuna, I will not be ending the stream for at least 5 minutes. At least 5 minutes. It's good to see you, though, my friend. Hey, Lumpy, what's up? Good to see you. And Cave, what's up? All of the friends. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope your worlds are treating you properly, as they should be for such illustrious individuals as yourselves. Today was first students back to class day. I had to go back to work on Monday, but it was like meetings and fun stuff, like sitting in meetings all day and more meetings and then panicked meetings. And over the summer, apparently IT decided to basically unplug all of the computers in my building. So I have spent hours of this week helping other people, specifically other instructors, my colleagues, get their computers put back together and back online and back connected to the printer. I also had to completely rewire my classroom because everything was literally yanked out of the wall, to the point that some of the plugs are literally now loose, just sort of hanging from the outlets. That was fun to come into. What's up, Green Herring? Good to see you. Yeah, Byzantine history. Some of my favorite stuff. Yeah, it's been, it has not been what I would call a bad week. It has been much more involved than I thought that it would be. I was certain that by this point I would be substantially further in the process of getting the semester started than I actually am. I am not where I need to be right now, so we'll just say it that way. My online sociology class starts on Monday, and I don't even have the dates for the assignments put in yet. So, good times. Yeah, I'm up to my eyeballs, if that makes any sense. I have a lot more students this year than I thought that I would. A lot more students. Almost double the students that I thought that I would have. But it is what it is, right? We'll do what we can. I had to stop part of the way through class this morning and rearrange furniture so that I could find places for everyone to sit, like move tables and desks and stuff around so that I could create room for people to sit. I've never had the room that I teach in be so full. These are the largest classes that I've ever taught, period. Did I see that Lord of the Rings was sold? I saw that some of their video game rights had been licensed to a Swedish company or a Norwegian company, or did the Tolkien estate actually get sold all together as a bundle? Middle Earth Enterprises sold. Wow, that's... Yeah, see, I'm so far behind. I did not get to... I haven't even looked at the news today. I really don't know what's going on in the world, and that's very, very odd for me. It has been nose to the grindstone. Full press releases in the Discord. Okay, cool. Yeah, I have been even not... I haven't even looked at the Discord fully today. I've seen that people have put stuff... Thanks, Moose. You know what's in the news? What's in the news is I'm a busy boy. $2 billion is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. All of the rights that were out there. Good gracious. That's a lot. I'll have to look at that off stream because I feel like I will almost certainly have words to say about that. 2 billion doesn't seem like a lot anymore. I don't think it sounds like enough, but I'm also incredibly partial, as we all know. Viper's good to see you, my friend. Uncle Bill, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Late Bloomer, what's up? Hope all is well in everybody's world. So, yeah, that brings us to today. The Byzantines. The Irish of the Bosphorus. What? What? In terms of preserving ancient literature. I see. I see. Okay. Oh, man. Considering the fact that the Byzantines were preserving literature substantially earlier than the Irish, wouldn't that just make the Irish the Byzantines of the North Sea? That seems a bit more accurate, historically speaking. Perhaps when we get to the Islamic caliphates in just a little bit, we can call the Umayyads the Irish of the Middle East, because that'll all sort of level out that way, if you want. In a few years, a shortstop for the Major League Baseball team will be getting $2 billion contract over 10 years. Perhaps. Who knows? You will fill me in. Trump's accountant pleads guilty. Finland's PM went to a party, and D&D announced the D&D 1 phase. What the frick is that? Who are the Byzantines of the high sea? I don't know. Shush, everyone is the Irish of something. Interesting. I'll allow it. I don't have anything else to say at the moment about that. But yes, we are talking tonight about the Byzantine Empire, and specifically the Great Byzantine-Persian War. This is a war that is going to throw the entire ancient world into chaos, and it's going to be directly responsible for the rise of a new empire that we will begin talking about not next stream, but in next week's Thursday stream. That being the rise of the First Islamic Caliphate. There is a reason why Islam was able to expand so rapidly, and one of the biggest ones was the stuff that we're talking about tonight. D&D 1 is combining all versions of D&D, and they'll be doing an all-in-one digital platform to get the market share from Fantasy Grounds /Roll20. It sounds to me like what they're actually going to do is make some version 5.5, which is going to further water down D&D, and they're going to call it all versions when they're actually not going to bring back in old AD&D or 3.5 things that were encouraging actual role play and didn't encourage you to just stare at a stat sheet and roll a 20-sided dice for everything. I feel like that's probably what's going to happen. But that's just me prognosticating. Shane is correct. I like hearing that, Cave. You can say that as much as you would like. All right. So, you might ask why Rome being such a big deal and Persia being such a big deal, why are we covering them both at the same time? Because I'm sure that you all know that I really love Persia, and you all know that I really love Rome. And it might seem a bit odd that we're doing both of them together, but it's mostly to kind of satisfy my love of this particular period of time. I really like this sort of narrative that we're going to talk about. So we're going to zoom in a bit more than we normally would, and we're not going to cover the entire period of the 600 to the year 700. We're really only going to look at the first few decades of that century. And we'll pick that up in a couple of streams. They're probably making streamlining changes and taking content you already paid for in other books and re-releasing it in the core book so you get to pay for it again. You know what I think I'm going to do? If I want to play D&D from now on in the future, I'm just going to try to get people in person, and I'll just download the books. How about that? I love streams involving Constantinople. There might be giants. They might be giants, you know? And of course, this is Constantinople, not yet Istanbul. But we will talk about Turks. They do show back up. They're kind of everywhere. So we will talk about them towards the very end of the stream tonight. But let us kick off and begin moving. All right, so let us establish where we are at the beginning. Rome looks like this. I don't have any idea why my photos are so jacked up. But Rome looks like this. It's a big chunk of Rome. Now, of course, if we remember, a lot of this stuff over here in the west had been reconquered by a guy named Justinian, who was one of the more successful Byzantine emperors back in the middle part of the 500s. Rome, the steak years. Rome is being ruled by this guy. You cannot see me, but I should have notified you from the beginning, but I am now wearing the adventure hat. If you do not know what the adventure hat is, it is this lovely adventure hat. It looks like this. I get to wear the adventure hat when I show photos of things that I've seen myself, like this particular coin. This is a coin of a guy named Mauricus Tiberius. Ooh, that went wrong. But we refer to him as Maurice. Some people call him Maurice. I guess if you are in the UK, you refer to him as Morris. I've never understood that, but there you go. I've been inside Mauricus Tiberius's remains. No, I just took this photo of his coin at the Istanbul Archaeological Museum. Here's another one to give you a little bit of a better idea of what this guy looks like. I don't know why they do like the closed eye thing. I don't get it. This one's got the open eye, but it's got like that weird pointy eye thing that we've been talking about for a while. So that is Maurice. Eyes are hard. Eyes are hard. All right, so he's the Roman emperor. He's in a bit of a bad spot. Now, this is going to refer to a little bit of the stuff that we talked about last time we talked about Rome. But Rome was beset by troubles, especially over here in the Balkans. There was a group of people called the Avars that had been causing significant amounts of trouble. We'll put Maurice up here. The Avars were some steppe people that had moved down into the Balkan Peninsula, and they had actually set up a rather large khaganate, which sat roughly where modern-day Ukraine is at the moment. But they were causing big trouble down here, and Maurice was sort of in a war against them. Should remove the adventure hat for we are no longer looking at things that I've seen. Now, what about Persia? Well, Persia's in a fairly strong position. This is a map of what Persia controlled at the point. This is a lot. It's actually quite a lot. All the way over into modern-day Afghanistan and Pakistan, all the way up to the Aral Sea, most of the Caspian Sea border, and around the Persian Gulf. Now, especially this region down here had been conquered again previously in the last century by a very powerful ruler here, specifically Khosrau I, and Persia was in a pretty good spot. Could it be a death thing? Like maybe insulting if the coins had open eyes on the eyes of the corpse, which doesn't. I don't know. That is at least a compelling coincidence. I don't know if I could say that is the actual case, but it has a ring of interest to it, if I can say it that way. But Persia's in a pretty good spot. They've got a big chunk of territory, and the guy ruling them is this dude. This is Khusrau II. Of course, the Persians always with the big hats, just going off on the big hat idea. Here's another Khusrau II coin. Once again, the big hats. So Khusrau II is the emperor of the Persians. Now, what is interesting about Khusrau... Oh, I spelled that wrong. What's interesting about Khusrau II is that he had actually been put on the throne by Maurice. There had been a bit of a dust-up right around the 580s, and there was a big war inside of Persia, and in 591... Maurice is actually going to send Byzantine armies with Khusrau into Persia to put Khusrau back on the throne. Now, this is going to be kind of an interesting moment because as a way to strike a bargain that seems to engender peace between the two, Maurice is actually going to adopt Khusrau as his son, which is kind of a weird move, right? The emperor of your largest rival is your adopted son. Now, of course, they don't call each other dad and son, but there's some ideological bond here. And Khusrau and Maurice had supposedly established this long-lasting peace that was never supposed to be broken. Is Khusrau II a god king like Xerxes that serves as the boss battle? No, Khusrau II is not the BBEG, the big bad evil guy. If anything, Khusrau is referred to by his particular title in Persian, which is Shah and Shah, which is King of Kings. And he was a religious figure in that he was expected to participate in certain priesthood / Zoroastrian rituals as a kind of figurehead, but not God King. And also, the God King thing that got Xerxes so popular got really, really played up in 300, and everybody sort of thinks that Xerxes' God King status was a lot bigger than it was. That was much more of a boast than it was actually any sort of believing that he was supposed to be worshipped as a god. He had a massive ego, no doubt. And if people wanted to like bow down and worship him, he would totally accept that. But whether or not most people in Persia, this would be a much different Persia, by the way. This is all the way back in around this number of years, around 600 to 500, so in the BC period under the Achaemenid Persians. That's a very, very different ideology than what Khusrau would have been. Now, of course, one interesting thing that we can point out here, and it sort of ties back into the Xerxes thing, there was a big, what we might call sort of a milieu where the Sassanids liked to call back to those ancient things. Persia is a great empire that's been around for 1,000 years and such. Now, of course, it had been through ups and downs, and it had gone from very, very large and powerful to not particularly large and powerful at all, to back being big and powerful again. And there was not an unbroken line of rulers between someone like Xerxes and Khusrau II. Of course, they're not related in the least, especially considering that Xerxes wasn't even necessarily a Persian in the same kind of way that Khusrau was, but that's a whole other thing. But there is kind of an ideological continuum, if that makes any sense. I should also warn everybody that this is, again, one of the world's periods of time where I am very much involved, and it would be pretty easy to get me to chase rabbits on this material because I know lots of the little ins and outs, which I know that you all appreciate, but also we do need to get on with it, right? Now, what's going on with Khusrau? Well, he's got a couple of issues himself. Specifically, he's got problems over here on his borders with the Turks. Now, if you have been with us in the last couple of episodes on Thursday, you'll know that there was a Western Turkish Khaganate that sat right here. And they had been invading down into Persian territory, and they were doing these sort of horseback raids in force and then running away. And this made it very hard for Persian leaders like Khusrau to sort of pin down these bad guys and bring them decisively to battle. And this raiding along the border is a big problem. And Khusrau is always kind of looking to that border, which is why the peace between Rome and Persia was mutually beneficial, because Rome could look to the east, to its west and fight the Avars and deal with the barbarians over there, and Persia could look to its east and fight the Turks and the other barbarian tribes over that way. So this was a good thing. Like, I don't have to fight the big guy, I can go fight the small guys. You find it suspicious that someone named their son Xerxes before the invention of Scrabble. That's a lot of that's a lot of good letters. You could get a pretty big word score, especially if you hit like triple. That would be a lot. That'd be almost a game killer, right? If you drew 2 X's, that by itself would suck. And then to get all of the letters that you would need to make Xerxes would be a feat. Also, it's a proper noun, so you can't use it. But, you know, we can argue. So, both countries have external trouble. Yeah, I got you, Tuna. I got you, Tuna. I'm guessing that there's a delay between the chat that I see and the chat that you all see. I wonder how bad the delay is. Am I lagging? Because that did seem like quite a bit of a lag, but I don't know. Okay. So they have external problems, but they also have internal problems. Lag check. 30 seconds on average. Holy moly, that's a lot of lag. I did not think that it was that bad. You're Xerxified. Xerxesified. Ugh. Okay. External problems with invaders. Both countries also have internal problems. What are the internal problems for our buddy in Khusrau? Well, our buddy in Persia, Khusrau. His biggest issue are the nobles, and in specific, the leadership of the Zoroastrian priesthood, who were called the Magi. Yes, same kind of Magi. He had been very brutal when it came to asserting his control of Persia when he took over the throne. And he had made a lot of people pretty mad. But with Rome backing him as the legitimate leader, he was sort of able to bat down all of the noble challenges and the issues with the Magi. It was about 30 seconds between when I sent that and when you read it. Well, there we go. Okay, so that's what's going on inside of Persia. What about inside of Rome? And this is actually where the plot really starts to progress here. There is a guy inside of Rome who is a big Roman general, and his name is Phocas. Now, this is a bit of a review from the last time we talked about the Byzantines, but Maurice had basically come to the throne via political and military wrangling. There were other people very much in line for the throne. He was not, so Maurice was not directly related to the previous emperor. He was just a big general in the army. Phocas did not want Maurice to be emperor in the first place. And when Maurice did well, it just sort of got under Phocas's skin. I'm Spartacus. KP. Thank you for the resub, my friend. And I'm glad that your car troubles have been rectified, even if it does sound like they kind of gave you the short end of the stick. But welcome, my friend. Hope that you are doing well, all things considered. So, Phocas doesn't like the fact that Maurice is being as successful as he was, because Maurice was a pretty good emperor. He had been asked to deal with the problem with Persia, and he won a big war against them, and had brought peace with the Persians as a result. And he had been asked to take care of the problem of the Avars, and he had done so. But this is where things are going to start going a little bit awry, because Maurice begins to do some campaigns over here in the Balkans, and specifically, he's going to go across the Danube River, which runs roughly right through here, right? Of course, it runs all the way up into, Central Europe, but it runs roughly right through here. And he was campaigning on the far side of the river, which had been for many, many years the sort of natural boundary between Roman territory and barbarian territory, right? So you've got a really big, very rapid, very deep river. It's a good thing for a boundary. But if you're going to be a Roman emperor, sometimes you got to roll the dice, and sometimes you've got to go fight the bad guys in their own territory, right? This is where Phocas is going to see an opening. My eyes, they're up here. You're 90% sure they railroaded you, but they had you being 600 miles from home. Yeah. I hope, is your insurance going to help any of that? Or was it all just out of pocket? Because that stinks. Or are you even going to file that on insurance? It's sometimes not even worth it. So, in 601, there's going to be a big attack across the Danube. And Maurice brings the army over across the river. They fight against the Avars. They beat up the Avars. The Avars flee. And then in 602, when it starts to get winter time, Maurice decides that it's time for him to go home, back to Constantinople. But here's the thing. He knew, tactically speaking, that the Avars were not gone, right? They weren't fully wiped out. They were just, scattered or deterred momentarily, if you will. So he decided that he was going to leave part of the army on the far side of the Danube to hold some of the river crossings. And this was a fairly good tactical decision, right? If we're going to go back to Constantinople with most of the army, it would be nice to make sure that we aren't going to let the bad guys just come running right back in the back door. Makes sense. So Maurice takes a fairly substantial part of the army back to Constantinople with him, and he leaves Phocas in charge of the army on the far side of the Danube. And at this point, Phocas really starts doing some dirty work. And he starts doing the old worm tongue trick of whispering poison and leech into the people's ears. And he convinces these soldiers on the far side of the Danube that Maurice had abandoned them to certain death. That he hated their guts, and he was doing this as punishment. And he had left Phocas out there as the leader because he knew that Phocas would end up dying, and then he could blame everything on him, and he was doing this because Phocas didn't care for Maurice. Yeah, right, it's the old worm tongue trick. And it works like gangbusters. The army decides to mutiny, and they declare Phocas emperor. And now Maurice has real troubles. Because as Phocas begins moving back towards Constantinople, he's stationed right about here. He's going to start picking up other troops along the way. And by the time he gets up to the walls of Constantinople, Maurice decides, I quit. And he just goes, look, I did everything that you people wanted. You wanted me to beat the Persians and bring peace? I did. You wanted me to beat the Avars and bring peace? I did. You wanted me to fix the monetary issues? I did. And if these are my thanks, forget this position. You can have it. So he gives up the throne before Phocas even gets into the city, and Maurice moves over here into what is modern-day Turkey. We would call it Anatolia, and just decides to retire. Brings his family with him, doesn't want a pension, doesn't want stipends, just wants to be left alone and live out the rest of his life in peace. Now, he's not even saying, I give up. He's just saying, I quit. Like, I quit. I'm not even going to, I don't care. He's not surrendering. He's just, like, throwing his hands up and, well, giving them hand gestures. I don't think they had the middle finger in the Byzantine world at the time. But if they did, he would have been giving them the double bird, right? So Phocas is going to take over in 602 as emperor. And boy, do things not go well for him at all. First off, almost as soon as Phocas gets his butt on the throne, the Avars show back up. And they're like, hey, remember us? And they're like, no, we beat you. You're supposed to be gone forever. And they're like, nope, we weren't actually gone. We were just scattered. And, you know, Maurice from his home in Anatolia is like, told you. And then Phocas is like, but I'm a good emperor. He was not a good emperor. So some people were like, Phocas, you're a pretender. We need to go back and find Heraclius. We need to go get we need to go back and get Maurice and put Maurice back on the throne. And Phocas is like, oh, heck no, you don't. And he sends out assassins to find Maurice. And by the way, let me iterate here, or clarify. At this point, all of the emperors and all of the nobility, well, not maybe all of the nobility, but the vast majority of nobility in the Byzantine Roman world were Christians. So here's some good Christian charity for you. Phocas sends out assassins to kill Maurice and all of Maurice's family. So Maurice had moved his entire family out to this estate, wasn't trying to get involved with anything, but because his very existence was a threat to Phocas, he had to go, right? So they do this in probably the worst possible way. He got the bulk assassination discount. He got, I don't know, man. This gets pretty bad. So the assassins break into Maurice's house and they kill all of his guards, and they kill his wife in front of him, and they kill his daughters in front of him, and then they kill all 6 of his sons in front of him, and then they kill him. So Maurice gets assassinated for being a good emperor. How typical of humanity is that, right? So that does seem pretty mean. And the fact that history records this means that somebody was probably bragging about it. Enough so that it got put into the history books. Hey, you gotta stop licking your leg. So the puppy is down here on the floor, and she was bitten by something, and she's got a big welt where she was bitten, and she's been licking it to the point that she's licked all of the hair off of it. Might have to start spraying the stinky no-lick stuff on there, which smells absolutely horrible. But I will put the adventure hat back on. No, I mean, we have a cone of shame. It's just assassin. We have a cone of shame, but we really don't like breaking it out unless it absolutely has to happen. It's just assassin. So this is Phocas. So here he is with his nice beard, and look, he's got a crown on top of his. A cross on top of his crown, and he's holding the cross because he's a good Christian emperor. After having Maurice and his whole family murdered, here he is again. Here's another one of his coins. Got his crosses. Look how Jesus-y I am. Look how Jesus-y I am. Right? Here's another one. Oop. Look, I am Jesus-y. I am crossing everything. Look at all of my crossy things. Here's one where he's just sad. I am sad, Phocas. By the way, he printed a whole bunch of coins in his very, very brief reign. Perhaps because one of the things that he did to try to shore up his popularity was pay everybody off. Because it turns out that people don't like it when you kill the cool emperor, even if he wasn't even emperor anymore. Yeah, he's out of focus. So this is what's actually going to start the big old war. Because if you'll remember, one emperor of Persia is the son of Maurice, that being Khusrau II. So when Phocas kills Maurice, Khusrau goes, oh, it's time. Now, let's be clear here. There was not really love between Khusrau II and Maurice. In fact, Khusrau was pretty shamed by the fact that he had to ask the Romans to put him on the throne in the first place. And he had been plotting to take back over a lot of the land that he had to give to the Romans as a payment to put him back on the throne in the first place. But Phocas just handed him what is the greatest cause of a war that he could have ever hoped for, right? This is unforced error kind of zone here. And Khusrau is going to make this giant speech and send all of these things out that Phocas had killed his father, and that Maurice was an honorable and just lord, and that Persia was not going to stand for such heinous activity. And he uses this as a pretext to launch an invasion of Rome. And this is going to begin the Great Byzantine-Persian War in the year 602. And this gets really, really bad. Now, Phocas is in a pickle because he's got Avars in the Balkans that are, at this point, literally just running loose. Are you not entertained? Angel, good to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. For those of you that do not know, my friend Angel here is a game streamer. Has recently been playing Control. Been doing a wee bit of lurking. Were you still playing Control today, Angel? I did not see. But if you like good chat with good fun commentary and delivered in a way that will make you appreciate the... I don't know. This is me being a bit partial because I probably watch way too much British TV. But there's just something special to me about British people cursing out video games. And I just love it. So you got to go check out Angel. He's a great streamer and a good dude. Just a really good dude. So go give Angel a follow. You love the intro? I try. I've actually been toying around with making like little commands that have spiels about everybody, but I don't know if I do. I don't know. That seems like a lot of work. with my unlimited time resources, you know. So, welcome everybody from Angel Stream. If you don't know who I am, hello, my name is Shane. I teach history and sociology in college, but what we do here on stream is talk about history stuff in a loose and free and non-threatening and definitely not super academic way. We goof off, we make fun of ancient people, we talk about how cool ancient people were. We try to talk about everything that I can put my hands on, not just the stuff that you get kind of in the Western history class. And tonight we are talking about Rome and Persia in a really big war that actually just kicked off. So you got here right at the beginning of the big war. This guy, Phocas, at the bottom, killed the adopted father of this guy, Khusrau, and now we're at a big old war. Do you have any favorite British TV shows? Oh, so many. Man, Flying Circus is... I mean, I just love Monty Python all over. I really liked Black Books, and I like all of the iterations of Yes Minister. I thought those were great. Thick of It is so great. The character of Ian Malcolm... Not Ian Malcolm, that's the guy from Jurassic Park. Crap, now I can't say the actual guy's name. The guy that was also Doctor Who, and Sid's dad in Skins. That guy's character from Thick of It is just like Malcolm Tucker. There we go. I knew it was Malcolm, but there we go. Let's see, what else? IT Crowd is quite good. I liked that, but I think that one's big enough that a lot of people kind of got into it. And I'm not trying to say like when everybody started liking it, I started hating it. Yeah, Black Books is excellent stuff. One of my favorites. Mighty Boosh. I do quite like Mighty Boosh. Oh man. What all have I seen? Faulty Towers, but that's very close to Monty Python. I watched all of the Skins show, all 3 cycles, and liked all of those. 2 was a bit the whole who's gonna love Effie thing, that got a little bit much for me. I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of British TV. And I'm always trying to keep up with things. Upstart Crow is one of the newer ones that I've really, really latched onto. But I like David Mitchell quite a bit. Mitchell and Webb Look is amazing. Peep Show I also love with a deep, deep affection. So much stuff. That's like asking me at a candy store, what's your favorite candy? And I'm just like, all of it. One thing that is a bit weird for me, or might be a bit weird if you know me, I don't really go in very much for like the quiz shows, right? So, I mean, Countdown, okay. Was it 9 out of 10 cats? Okay. I mean, they're funny, but like, I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me. I like Number Wang though. Like, that's Number Wang. Let's rotate the board. That stuff to me is hilarious. And like the Countdown episode of IT Crowd is amazing. Like, okay, QI is okay. If I had to watch any of them, Would I Lie to You is the one that I would watch. Because I especially like it when the contestants start cutting jokes at the expense of the panel. That to me is some of the best content from Would I Lie to You. But I've seen all of that stuff. It's just not really like, I don't know. The quiz show thing just, if it's on, I'll watch it. And if you want to watch it and you've not seen it, I'll totally watch it with you. But I probably would not choose to watch that on my own volition had I the time. I do like Luther quite a bit. I think Idris Elba is aces. I don't think I've ever seen anything that he's done that I've just openly disliked. Some of the other like I like Shetland. Okay, it was okay. Um, it got a bit much. What's the show that had? And thank you for supplying Peter Capaldi. Yes, the show that had David Tennant, where he was the neurotic police detective. White Castle. Yeah, that one was pretty good. I don't wait. Is that the same one that I'm thinking about? I don't know. Broadchurch. Yeah, Broadchurch. That's one. I've not actually seen White Castle. Broadchurch was really good. I liked Broadchurch quite a bit. So, I mean, I could just continue to go on and dig stuff up forever. But if you know something that I haven't mentioned and you think I should watch it, I will absolutely put it on the list. I am very much open to discovering new things. Get on with it. Okay, thank you much. We'll get on with it. Okay. So, Khusrau, Emperor of Persia, declares war on Phocas, Emperor of Rome, because Phocas had killed Maurice, previous Emperor of Rome. But Phocas is in big, big trouble. In the Balkans, not only had the Avars shown up to cause trouble, there were also the Slavs. So the Balkan Peninsula, at this particular time, was effectively overrun by Avars and Slavs. And the Byzantines had no real way to try to combat this, because Phocas had spent all of the treasury on bribing people not to kill him. So when it comes to, hey, we need to outfit an army and go fight the barbarians in the Balkans, Phocas is like, ain't got no money. So what's the option here? Phocas's option, and this is the actual one that he takes, the option is let him have it. We've got really big walls here in Constantinople. They're not going to be able to get on our side of the walls. Just let them have it, because we need to scrape together what money we can to fight Persia, because they are the bigger threat. Being Human, I liked it. The longer it went, I liked it less. First few seasons of Being Human, excellent. Decreasing value over time. Except for the zombie episodes. I thought those were delightful.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
Nixolotl.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
Nixa, thank you so much for that sub. Very much appreciated. In one more month, we shall have ourselves a Twitch baby. Hope that you are doing well, my friend. Everybody should go give Nixolotl a follow. Okay, so we're going to basically abandon the Balkans. So what are we going to do then? Well, we're going to take what army we can, and we're going to try to come over here and fight the Persians. But Khusrau is in a much more powerful position, and it's not going to go very well for Phocas. They start losing territory pretty quickly. Now, when all of this stuff is going down, it turns out that people start thinking, maybe Phocas is a bad emperor. Maybe he's not good. Are we the baddies? Right? Yes, Phocas is a baddie. And he loses popularity faster than just about any emperor had. This guy just bottoms out popularity. And this is going to start some of the generals talking. Specifically, the few generals that are left that actually still have armies. And there does happen to be one of those generals over here in Africa. Now, if you'll remember, Rome had retaken this northern portion of Africa right here. And it was under what had been titled the Exarchate of Africa. So this sort of region right around here in Tunisia and Algeria had been retaken, And the Roman general that was running that show is a guy named Heraclius. Let me delete this, and we'll put Heraclius under here. Now, Heraclius, he's the Boris Johnson of his day. Boris held on for a couple of years, though, with at least support among his own party. Phocas doesn't make it a full year before everybody's out for his blood. It's pretty rough for this guy. So, Heraclius is the exarchate, or the ruler, the exarch, if you will, of Africa. And a lot of the people that had been sort of brought back into the Roman sphere over here, like the ones in Italy and ones in northern Africa, and especially the ones down here in Egypt, were looking at Phocas and going, this guy is going to wreck the world. And we need to get rid of Phocas. Here's the problem with that. He's the emperor, right? And it was not really seen as the good Christian thing to do to rebel against the empire, because of that whole give to Caesar what is Caesar's thing, right? That's in the Bible. So Heraclius has to be convinced. And several other generals go to this guy and they say, look, you are well respected. We support you. And if you want, we will help you rebel against Phocas. And it takes years for this to actually work. So all of the stuff with Khusrau goes down in 602. It takes all the way until 608 for Heraclius to openly rebel. And in that intervening 4 years, Rome had just lost battle after battle after battle to the Persians, and the Balkan Peninsula became even more overrun by non-Roman forces. What's up, Steve? How's it going, my friend? Hope you're having a good one. So Heraclius decides to rebel. And the first thing that he does is floats his little ships down here to Egypt. Now, why is Egypt such a big deal? Well, you probably know why Egypt is such a big deal. It's the same reason it's been such a big deal since, the Bronze Age. Egypt makes a lot of food. And when he gets to Egypt, well, he cuts off the food supply and goes, we'll just take that to feed our army, and we'll just kind of leave Phocas out there on his own. Now, this makes Phocas really mad. So what is Phocas to do? Well, he goes around Constantinople and he finds all of the relatives of Heraclius. Most of these are women, some of them are young boys, and he kills all of them. Because that's the good Christian thing to do, is to round up the family members of the guy rebelling against you and kill all of them in a way to prevent him from continuing the revolution. Seems like if you wanted to get that person to go away, you would hold them hostage and say, if you don't stop, I'm going to kill all of these people. Because if you go straight to the killing, that's like giving up the leverage position, right? Anakin, that you? Yeah, killing the younglings and all. I'm starting to think that Phocas guy is a bit of a meanie. He was not a nice dude. So, at this point, Phocas decides, all right, guys, it's go time. And I am full out going to emperor my way out of this trouble. And you killed my family, prepare to die. Correct. We are already covered that he's not a good dude. Now, in this moment, Heraclius is actually going to die. Now, it just so happens that his son, who was involved in the rebellion with him, is also named Heraclius. So I don't have to change the words down here. But no, at this point, we're not talking about Heraclius the Elder. We're talking about Heraclius the Younger. Young Herak. I don't know, Heracles would be his Greek name. It's Hercules. You know what this is. Young Herc. How about that? That's his street name, Young Herc. So, Young Herc is going to move his army from down here in Africa up into the Balkans. And along the way, he's going to start pushing back the Slavs and the Avars. And he starts liberating some of these cities that had been under what wasn't necessarily occupation, but definitely constant threat from these Avars and Slavs. And these people are looking at this guy and going, holy crap, this dude's legit. He's actually killing the bad guys. Yeah, Junior, we named the dog Indiana. Kevin Sorbo. What's up, Junk Collector? The Adventures of Young Hercules. I can't remember how long that show lasted, but it was not very good. It was not very good. I actually really loved Hercules with Kevin Sorbo. I watched the devil out of that show. I was also a big fan of Xena Warrior Princess for obvious reasons. But I mostly enjoyed the fact that they very frequently had the Greek gods involved, and they did a lot of mythology. That was right up my alley. I particularly appreciated those shows when I was younger. And I will unashamedly love those shows, even though I know they were pretty bad. Oh yeah, right? You got this friggin' like frisbee of death. Like, how cool is that, right? Gabriella's your favorite. They definitely changed her character a lot in later seasons. I didn't really care for the Xena stuff when they got all the way up to like the stuff where they were dealing with like gods and angels and stuff. That got a little bit much. Unfortunately, Sorbo turned out to be a tool. Yeah, I think that's probably correct. I was trying to see if I could maybe soften that to maybe be a bit more not so. Yeah, okay, that's correct. We'll just take that. You loathe those shows. Oh, Vipers. It's okay. Nobody has to love everything that I love, but I really liked watching those shows when I was young. I really did. The Byzantines really fell off after season 4. What's up, Smite Knight? Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, around that time that they just decided to go all weird and like, bureaucratic, it just gets too much. You can't keep up with who's betraying who because it's everybody, right? If you all do not know my friend Smite, you got to go give this guy a follow. Smite Knight is a political streamer, but also a fellow historian that talks a lot of sense. And you gotta give this guy a good follow here. You hated Joss Whedon shows too. You were ahead of your time. You played the Ottomans. Yeah, it's hard to hold on to your empire when those other guys have guns, right? It's a little explosive. All right, so we have Heraclius the Younger, who is liberating the Balkan Peninsula. The people love this guy. Phocas is a giant jerk. He's still losing territory over in the east. And there's this great moment where Heraclius brings his army up to the walls of Constantinople. These great walls that had been built by Theodosius II that were supposedly impenetrable. And the people on the wall go, "What are you here for? Who are you? Are you the rebel?" And he's like, "Hi, I'm Heraclius. I'm here to get rid of Phocas." And some of the people are like, "Oh, you're that guy. Come on in. We want you to get rid of him too." And they're moving through the city from the walls to where the palace is a pretty good way. We're talking probably a mile and a half or so, maybe 2 miles. Maybe not. Yeah, it's a pretty good ways. So everybody hears Heraclius is in the city. And when this gets to the ears of Phocas, he's like, oh crap. And he tries to run out of the palace and hide in Hagia Sophia, because you can't kill a guy if he's in a church, right? But Heraclius catches him. And there's this great exchange where Heraclius is like, "You, usurper and horrible emperor guy, I am going to arrest you and we're going to put you on trial." And Phocas is like, forget you. You suck. I hate your guts. Do you think you could do any better? And Heraclius is like, yeah, I do. And they execute Phocas. So Phocas is now out of focus, and Heraclius becomes the emperor. And you're like, oh wow, that's a bit much, right? It's an interesting little story. So I will read on the adventure hat here, and we will share some adventure hat emotes, and I will show you Heraclius. So here is Heraclius. We've got one in profile, pretty powerful looking guy, good jaw, nice headband, right? He's got the action headgear going here. Here's another one with him showing his Jesus off. Oh yeah, I love the nose. He's got that big strong nose. Here we go with the beard. You got to have the good beard, right? Crown, got to show off the cross, got to hold the cross. So that is Heraclius. And he becomes emperor in 610. Now, things are grim for the Roman world. Even though Heraclius has defeated Phocas and killed him, there is still a lot of war going on, because Khusrau II isn't calling time out to allow the Romans to have their little intranecine parties here, right? They're still conquering stuff, and Khusrau is doing it really well. About 2.5 years into Heraclius's reign, this all comes to a point because, well, Khusrau had gotten really close. Khusrau had actually managed to conquer almost all of Anatolia and had taken territory just on the other side of Constantinople. So, once again, Constantinople sits right here on this peninsula. Well, Khusrau had taken this side of the peninsula, and they were kind of looking at each other's armies across the little strait right there going, hi. And Heraclius actually tries to fall on the sword. And he sends word to Khusrau, and he's like, look, clearly you're beating the crap out of us. I'm not going to dispute that. You're beating the junk out of us. Yes, Phocas killed your adopted dad, but I got rid of Phocas. So if you said that this war was in retaliation of Phocas doing that, Phocas is now dead, so would you please leave our territory? Because I've done what you said you were here to do. Is there any way we could have peace? And Khusrau's like, nah, bro. I'm kicking your butt. You got nothing to do. I'm just going to keep on kicking your butt. And this is where things get really bad. Particularly in 613, there is a giant battle in Antioch. Now, Antioch is a strategic, important position because right here, it's a strategic, important location. If you're going to move an army from Persia on land to places like, I don't know, Egypt, you gotta have Antioch, because you move your troops up here, across, and then down. You do not move troops across the Syrian plateau right here because it's a desert and it's rough terrain and there is no water. So you move up Mesopotamia, across, and then down. And you gotta have Antioch because you're not moving down if you don't have Antioch. Could you, like, not? No, I'm gonna. So there's a big battle at Antioch. The Roman army that is defending Antioch gets utterly defeated. It gets wrecked. And Khusrau decides to sack the city. Now, Khusrau, of course, not a Christian. Khusrau is, at least on the surface, a Zoroastrian. Antioch was one of the really important cities of Christianity. It was the seat of a patriarch. So there were 5 Christian patriarch cities. That was Rome, Constantinople, Antioch, Jerusalem, and Alexandria. And these were sort of like the church leadership at the time, and kind of like there wasn't a pope at that point. The bishop in Rome was the patriarch of Rome, and these 5 cities sort of ruled the Christian world. Well, turns out Khosrau knows that, and as a message to the Romans, captures the patriarch of Antioch and kills him as a "our God's cooler than your God" move, right? Ahura Mazda, way more powerful than Yahweh, as proven by me killing your dude. And that's a pretty big psychological blow. Also, when the city gets sacked, a lot of the big churches there get damaged, and a lot of cool relic stuff gets stolen and sent back to Persia to be put in the vaults as loot. And if you didn't think that was bad enough, the next year in 614, Khosrau had conquered all of the territory down the Mediterranean coastline and gets to Jerusalem, the big patriarch at the time. And in 614, there is a big siege at Jerusalem, and Khosrau takes Jerusalem. The British Museum of their day, yeah, kinda. We conquered you, and we're going to take your cool stuff so that we can look at it when we're bored. Man, I'd love to go to the British Museum, though. No joke, I really would. I was just talking about that with one of my friends a couple of days ago, about how much time I would need to go through the British Museum to the level that I think I would feel comfortable, and I think I figured it out in about 3 days. I would need about 3 days in the British Museum. I think I would need about 4 days in the Louvre to see everything that I wanted to see and get good pictures of everything without having to rush myself. I know that 1 day in the Louvre is not enough. I've done that before, and it's not enough. There's so much stuff. Okay, so when 614 happens, it's even worse, because Khosrau at this point was actively trying to demoralize the entire Roman world, because he just kind of wanted them to fall apart, and he wanted Persia to take over all of the Roman territory. So when he broke into Jerusalem, he murdered tens of thousands of people. According to the ancient sources, about 60,000 people from Jerusalem that were not combatants, right? These are just people in the city, got murdered. Another 35,000 of them got deported to Persia as slaves, and Khosrau is going to take some of the most important Christian relics that existed on the face of the earth. For example, the largest shard of the true cross, right? So this is a chunk of wood that is supposedly from the actual cross that Jesus was crucified upon. That gets sent back to Persia. The Spear of Longinus, good old-fashioned Spear of Destiny, that gets sent back to Persia. And the Holy Sponge. So if you know the story of the crucifixion, there's a point where Jesus cries out that he is thirsty, and someone dips a sponge into wine vinegar and holds it up to him to drink. That sponge had apparently been preserved. That gets sent back to Persia as well. And this is the second Christian patriarch city to fall. Aren't all sponges holy? Correct, but not all of them are blessed. I bring a long lens so you can see the Mona Lisa. Yeah, it's not as big as it seems, and it's also not able to be approached very well. You stand in a really long line to stand about probably 5 meters away from it. No one preserves your sponges. Yeah, I mean, I guess we're not all as cool as Jesus was. Maybe some of us, I don't know. It depends on how cool you think you are and how cool other people think you are. if one day someone starts a religion about me, first off, I would be surprised because I'm a pretty horrible individual, and I would not consider anything that I've ever said to be religion worthy. But it would be interesting to see what the tenets of Shainism would be. You take your birding lens to the Louvre, yeah, just like sit it up on a tripod and just zoom that junk in from the distance. You wouldn't even have to stand in the crazy long line then. My wife and I have actually been talking about getting a better camera eventually with a good lens so that we can go try to get some better pictures of birds. My wife and I both really like bird watching. My wife is much deeper into the bird watching world than I am, but I have come to appreciate it, and I'll be very honest and say that to me it has almost become like a real world version of Pokemon, and I kind of want to see all of the birds. You plan to make a mark on history by minting coins of yourself and burying them. Vipers, that's actually a great idea. A great idea. Because one day that would really screw with a future archaeologist. So, there's a battle where Heraclius' forces fight in Antioch, 613. They lose. Heraclius tries to stop the advance of the Persians down the Mediterranean coastline and cannot do it. They cannot hold on to Jerusalem. They lose Jerusalem in 614. Now, this is where things get really, really, really bad. Because Khusrau has his eyes set on Egypt. Why do you want Egypt? Well, it turns out that Egypt makes a lot of food, which you kind of need for big armies, right? And you kind of need to make lots of money off of, etc., etc. So Heraclius is unable to stop him. Now, it does drag on a bit. So 613, Antioch. 614, Jerusalem. But by 618, so for 4 years, they were able to delay the Persian forces getting to Alexandria. But in 618, Alexandria and Egypt is going to fall to the Persians. And at that point, the Persians have all of this. Now, that's a big Persian empire. That's a real big empire. I mean, they had a bunch of territory to begin with, but good gracious, that's like supersized Persia. Now, all of this was Roman. Was. Not anymore, but it was. And Heraclius is facing a bit of trouble at home. Because it turns out, if you lose a whole bunch, and you lose 3 of the patriarch cities in the span of 4 years, that people get a bit miffed. So, what is he to do? He's basically out of armies. The last big army that they had was the one that they had put down in Alexandria to try to hold on to Egypt. The only soldiers that he really has access to are the ones that are trying their best to hold on to the territory in the Balkans. And he had pulled all of his troops out of Africa to take over Phocas' world in the first place. He's out of armies. He's also out of money, and because, Khusrau's not going to send food from Alexandria to Constantinople, he's out of food. So no food, no monies, no armies. What are you going to do if you're the emperor of Rome at that point? Well, you start praying, right? Time to beg for allies? Well, he's got God on his side. So, what are we going to do? Well, you're going to devalue all of the coins, right? So instead of a coin being, 100% gold, we're going to cut that down to, like 75% gold, and we're going to make lots more coins. So this is quantitative easing. if you know that goofy term that we use today, meaning the Federal Reserve is going to buy up a crap ton of treasury bonds so that the treasury can go print more money and cause inflation. He creates inflation. He's also going to cut all of the administrative pay. So if you work for Rome, you took a 50% pay cut because we got to make money. He's also going to go to wealthy individuals within Rome and go, you're going to give me a loan. And they're like, I don't think I'm going to give you a loan. And he's like, I'm not asking. We need a loan, and you're going to give me a loan, and I'll pay you back when I can. But at the moment, you're going to give me a loan. And then he does something even weird. He goes to the Patriarch of Constantinople, and he says, hey, Patriarch, here's the deal. I know that your churches have lots of stuff, right? And the Patriarch is like, I mean, yeah. And he goes, I want your stuff. I want your gold candlesticks. I want your gold plates. I want your gold cups. I want your silver and your gold. I want you to take all of the bronze plated shingles that you have on your roofs of your churches, and I want you to melt those down, and I want all of that money. And they go, but now that's taking that money from God. And Heraclius goes, I'm on a mission from God, and you're going to give me that money. And they do. This is crazy. This is big. So he gets together this one last ball of cash, and he goes, it's time to make an army. So how do you just make an army? Well, he's going to recruit troops, and instead of just recruiting them and throwing them at the bad guys, he's going to take them up into the mountains and train them secretly for about a year. And he goes up into this little kingdom over here called Lazica. Now, if you've been with us on previous streams where we've talked about Persia and Rome, you'll remember Lazica. But for those of you that weren't around, there's a little country that's basically sitting right here in this little triangle zone that's called Lazica. And it was a Christian country that had converted to Christianity back in the 400s and had usually been an ally of Rome. And he goes to Lazica, and here in these mountain valleys, Heraclius, who again was a soldier in a previous life, drills his army and trains his army, and he makes this one last fighting force. So this is a big gamble. He's got one more army, and if he loses this army, there ain't going to be no more armies. There's no more money to beg, borrow, or steal. He's done everything that he can to outfit and train and recruit this army. So he's got one army left. Now, what do you do with this one army? And this is where Heraclius makes one of the... if I were to make a YouTube series called Ballsiest Calls of History, this would easily be a contender for number one ballsiest call of all history. He's got one last army, and he goes, we're going to attack the capital city of Persia. We're just going to go straight at the capital city. We're not going to go try to find Khusrau. He's down in Egypt. We're not going to try to retake our territory. We're going to go for the kill shot. We're going to go take the capital of Persia. Now, that's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him. Yeah, this is Leroy Jenkins, except not planned. Or scripted, rather. Not scripted. So he starts talking to everybody in this region, and he finds out that these Turkish people are also in the region, and they don't care for the Persians either. So Heraclius is going to make kind of a deal with the Turks that if the Turks start attacking over here, well, who cares? We're going to recognize that you take all of this land. And by the way, if you could send us some of those horseback soldiers, that would be awesome. And we'd be really good friends at that point. And the Turks are like, hey, we like friends. Here, we hate Persia. Take some of our soldiers. So Heraclius has this one last little chunk of an army, and he decides to go straight for the kill shot. Now, the capital of Persia sat right about here, and it was called Ctesiphon. And this seems to be what he had planned to do all along. And the reason he chose Lazica as his sort of station is because you can go basically straight south from Lazica and get to Ctesiphon, right? It's just kind of a bloop. So he attacks. As he's attacking, word gets down to Khusrau, who was kind of living it up down here in Egypt. And they go, Emperor of Emperors, King of Kings, Shah Khusrau II. How are you today? I've got some news, and just want to make sure that you're in a good mood. Turns out that the Romans have more army, and they're kind of attacking way behind our lines, and they're going to be able to get to our capital first. And Khusrau has a complete oh crap moment, because he's not going to be able to get back to Persia in time. Would not want to be the deliverer of that news, right? Right? You're going to get killed. It's a big mess. So Rome is going to invade into Armenia. They're going to take out the Persian capital of Armenia. They're going to basically set fire to one of the biggest Zoroastrian fire temples. Is this really, really big place called Takhti Suleiman. Well, that's its modern name. Clearly, Suleiman is not a name that they would have used at that point. But there's a really big fire temple there, and this is in retaliation. Like, oh, you're going to wreck our temples in Antioch and in Jerusalem and in Alexandria? We're going to wreck one of your fire temples that has been burning fire here for 900 years. We're going to wreck it. So take that, junk face. And at this point, Khusrau is losing his mind. And he goes, okay, who can we call that could maybe help us here? And Khusrau's advisors go, well, there were those Avars and those Slav people over in the Balkans. Maybe we can do something with them. And so Khusrau sends word over to them, and he goes, hey, Avars and Slavs, remember how much you hate the Byzantines? Well, it just so happens that they don't have any soldiers in Constantinople at all. You guys should really attack right now. And the Avars and the Slavs are like, well, this is great news. Yeah, let's go attack them. So the Avars and the Slavs show up at the walls of Constantinople, those big Theodosian walls. I should have shown pictures of that. I guess I still could. Give me a second, I'll pull some up. And they attack Constantinople. But here's the thing. There's not really anybody left to defend Constantinople because, again, all of the soldiers are gone. And the only thing that's really left inside Constantinople are the old people, the women, the children, and what is basically the police units that are soldiers keeping the peace inside the capital. And that's not a lot. Here, let me show you all some pictures. I'll put the adventure hat back on. Whee! Because I love showing photos. It makes things great. And I went to see this earlier in the year, so I'm going to share it with you. All right, so these are the Theodosian walls. Now, these are some pretty bad sections that are currently being propped up to keep them from falling down. But you can see these are big old walls, and there's multiple phases of them. So you have like an out wall and a moat, and then another moat, and then an in wall with towers. These are big, big walls. And if you are trying to attack these walls, it ain't easy. These, by the way, once again, built by Theodosius II back in the 400s. So they are still remarkably preserved considering. So these are part of the walls that have not been very well preserved. This is sort of on the southern part of the stretch. And this particular part right here has not been very well preserved because this was damaged during the big siege that Smite could tell us a lot more about, where Mehmet II in 1453 brought down the walls with his giant freaking cannons. Of course, this is when Constantinople falls and the Byzantine Empire is effectively ended. But that's another 700 years from what we're talking about. So a lot of this damage that we're looking at would not have been from the time that we're talking about right now. This would have been from a lot later when guns were introduced. But if you go to modern day Istanbul, you can see all of this stuff and walk down all these really cool stretches of wall. Really freaking cool stuff. This was one of the goals that I wanted to make sure that I got when I was in Turkey earlier in the year. It's just really, really sweet stuff. All right, so there we go. A little bit of a side distraction here with the walls, but hey, why not? Anyway, Constantinople, undefended. Very, very few people were there. So, what do we do? Well, the guy that was the patriarch of Constantinople at the time was this dude named Sergius. And Sergius had started to kind of really believe that God really did want to save the Byzantine world. And he had sort of actually bought into the larger God told Heraclius that he needed the money stuff, right? So Sergius had been the one that had rounded up a lot of the church money and given it to Heraclius to build this army. And Sergius is going to take over almost as defender of the city. And he's going to rally the people of the city to go up on the walls and defend the city from the Slavs and the Avars. And there are all sorts of really weird stories about this particular battle, where Sergius decides to parade this particular icon of the Virgin Mary up and down the wall, and everywhere that he brought this icon, he would sing and pray. And if the enemy was making gains against the walls, when he came through carrying this icon, singing and praying, the power of God would manifest itself and push the barbarians away. And it's this great, you get some sort of anecdotal stories from later on that, certain saints showed up to help fight. It's actually a fairly miraculous thing that Constantinople did not fall at this point. But the Avars and the Slavs were defeated, and they had to retreat from the wrath of the population of Constantinople. Between Khusrau and Heraclius, which one is a Mac and which one is a PC? Oh, that's a great question. I think Khusrau is probably the PC because at this particular point in time, he's more compatible. He's ruling more peoples. He has brought together a wider array of things that could be used to accomplish certain goals. And Heraclius would be a Mac because he's basically only good for one thing, and if it breaks, you have to basically get a new one. If that makes any sense with the situation. Anyway, so the walls hold, and the people of Constantinople and Sergius and the image of the Virgin Mary and the power of God repels the invaders, but Heraclius is still trucking down here, and he gets to their capital city. Now, right outside of that, there's a really big battle at this city called Nineveh. Well, it's actually up in Syria, but this is along the way. There's this big battle where Heraclius is going to pull out the oldest trick in the book, the old "I'm retreating when I'm actually not retreating" trick, and runs the Persian army into a big ambush. And there's actually this great little story where the leader of the Persian army, this guy named Razda, supposedly challenged Heraclius to single combat. And with the power of God, Heraclius slew him with one blow. Just... Anyway, you can see that this is becoming sort of a hagiography kind of thing, where Heraclius is becoming a larger-than-life figure. But anyway, they get to the capital city. They capture the capital city, and when Khusrau shows up to his own capital city, he finds the Romans sitting there. And at that point, Heraclius goes, "Guess what, buddy? You're not emperor anymore, because all of your people, they don't like you." And it turns out that when Heraclius was sort of going his way through Persia, he found out that there were nobles that didn't really like Khusrau, and there were priests that didn't really like Khusrau. And when he took them over, they were very handy in saying, "Yes, we don't want Khusrau to be emperor anymore. We would love for you to pick somebody that's not him to be emperor." So Khusrau gets deposed, and he tries to hold on for whatever he can, but his own people end up killing him. So Khusrau gets the old assassin. And the guy that they put on the throne, who's basically now going to be a figurehead for the nobles and the magi, is this guy named Kavad II. Yup, definitely a PC. So this is Kavad II, the new emperor of Persia. Now, as a sort of, I don't know what's the word here, as a punishment for starting this this war against Rome, Persia has to give back all of the Roman land that it took. This, by the way, is in 628. So all of this war has happened in the span of 26 years. But it's been a long 26 years, right? So Persia has to give back all of the territory that they took from Rome. But let's also remember that some of this territory had been in Persian hands for about 2 decades. So there was a new generation of people that had not lived under the rule of Rome. So it's going to be kind of rough for Heraclius to take this stuff back over. Also, he's going to take back all of those relics, the Spear of Destiny, the Holy Sponge, etc., and he's going to restore those to their rightful places at Antioch and Jerusalem and Alexandria. And the ones in Jerusalem are especially important, and there is a big to-do with parades and singing, and it's if you read this story in the historical sources, the writers of the historical sources really clearly try to play this like the triumphal return, that point in the story of Jesus' life where he rides into Jerusalem on a donkey and everybody's like waving palm fronds and saying Hosanna and all that stuff. There's a pretty clear imaging here of Heraclius, this guy who had enough faith in God to do the impossible, is going to bring all of this stuff back to Jerusalem with fanfare. Really, really interesting stuff. Also, Persia is going to have to pay a really big whopping indemnity, basically reparations, to the tune of, how much do you have in your treasury? We'll take that much, please. Also, Persia has to release all Roman prisoners that they had in various prisons across the empire. So Rome comes out of this in really spectacular fashion. But just because they won doesn't mean they're in good shape, right? Let's remember, the war had stretched out for 26 years. And this is a war between the biggest two empires in what we might consider the Western world. There were hundreds of thousands of people dead. Even though Persia had to give this big chunk of money over to the Romans, this does not refill the Roman coffers. They have to use basically all of that money to rebuild the cities that had been destroyed by the Persians. And let's also remember that Rome has been significantly depopulated of soldiers. They still only have the one army. So how are you going to control all of the Byzantine territory with just the one army? And the answer is, it's really hard to do that. And let me show you this image here to wrap us up. If we look at about 630, this is the way that the world looks here. We've got a much contracted Persian Empire. We've got a restored Byzantine Empire. And player 3 has entered the game. The Rashidun Caliphate. We haven't talked about them, but if you know anything about history, you will know that this is the first Islamic caliphate that was set up by Muhammad, and the Rashidun Caliphate are the caliphs who follow him that were members of his family. And in the next couple of streams, these guys are going to be one of the largest benefactors of the fact that the Byzantines and the Persians are in really bad shape. And we learned that this time in history is the Dark Ages. Right? Nobody needs to talk about that period of time between basically the fall of Rome and the rise of Charlemagne, right? Because everything between, the 400s and the 800s is just hot garbage, nothing. Nobody talks about that, right? Nobody needs to talk about that stuff. This is fascinating history. And some of my favorite stuff. This period of time is really among the best of the best for me. And I appreciate you all at least being indulgent to the fact that instead of talking about an entire century, we basically just talked about 30 years of history for 2 hours. But it's the stuff that I really like. And it's my stream, so I get to have a little bit of a prerogative, right? But that does wrap up the stuff that I wanted to talk about for the night. So, if there are any questions about this material, or if you all would like to do point redemptions or stuff like that, you are welcome to do so while I go look to see who else is streaming. Because I definitely would benefit myself from sitting and being lazy and not doing very much. Because I am tired. Anybody got any questions or such? Questions or such? That should be a channel by itself, right? Nice pink Gundam. Yeah, so this guy is that shiny Epion that I was working on. I finished it up and then put it up there on the whatchamacallit. You want to say that you were years old when you realized that Samwise Gamgee's dad is Gomez Adams. What? I don't know what you're talking about, Vipers. That's an interesting take there. Good stream. Thank you, Green Herring. I appreciate that. Do you think Heraclius managed to read The Art of War by Sun Tzu? So first off, I don't know if that's necessarily as weird of a question as you might think. Because around this time in the Byzantine world, there is going to be a big military reorganization. and they're going to basically scrap the provincial system, and they're going to move to something that was called the themata system. And there's going to be a big military book published that's called the Strategicon. That's just from a little bit later on. We know that there were contacts between Rome and China because we see Roman coins in China and we see Chinese goods in Rome. So it's not necessarily out of the question that somebody might have been able to put a copy of The Art of War into Heraclius's hands. Now, do we have evidence of that? No. And would I say that it's likely? Probably not. But if you wanted to write an interesting historical novel, a historical fiction novel, where Heraclius gets the idea of attacking where his enemy is weak from Sun Tzu, I think you could make a fairly compelling historical novel out of that. I don't think that would be a bad read if you structured it the right way. Sean Astin's dad is John Astin. Okay, I didn't know that. And yeah, there are a lot of people that played Gomez Adams. Gomezi. What's up, Phocas? Good to see you. Gamses. Yeah, I mean, I know it was probably like a goofy ha-ha question, but I mean, even goofy ha-ha questions might deserve some exploration. There might be some good in there. You never know. There might be some good in there. All right. Anybody else have questions or things or stuff? Questions or things or stuff? All of those. All of those. I didn't drink all of my tea. What is Rome's equivalent of the art of war? The Strategicon. Let me type that for you. There might be a version of that that's online. It's actually written by our buddy Maurice. Strategicon. Is this it? Ah. Here you go. There you are. Free copy on archive.org. It's the good stuff. Standard question book. Yeah, we can do some standard question book. This is the standard question book. It's a book full of a lot of questions. And it references pages in a book that I don't have. And that means I don't know if I have the answers or not. So what we do is we just find a random page. Like, let's get something really, really far in the back. We rarely ever get that far in the back. So how about you? Is there actually... Yeah, okay, here we go. Yeah, so we'll pick this question. And we'll see what it says. Of what does psychology treat? Of what does psychology treat? Of what does psychology treat? I don't even know what that means. Of what does psychology treat? So psychology treats mental illness? Psychoses? I'm guessing, like, what is the definition of yeah, I mean, that's a weird one. Diseases of the humors. That's a great one, Noker. Yeah, I'm guessing, like, the mind or mental ailment. What theories have been advanced to account for dreams? That's a great question. I don't know what that theory would have been in 1907 when this book was published. But I know that today, a lot of people think that dreams exist as a way for your brain to sort of dump all of the excess memory that it was using as it was processing stuff through the day. Basically, all of the leftover bits of memory that you pulled up that you don't necessarily need, it just sort of like puts it in a bin and then dumps it out, and that's kind of what influences your dreams. You should compile all the goofy questions asked in chat and publish the non-standard book of questions and its companion with your answers. I don't know if there would be anybody interested in that as a publishing company. That would have to be a Kickstarter thing, and I'd have to do print on demand. Cigars. Cigars make dreams. So that was an interesting one. That's a really interesting question. Dreams exist, so Neil Gaiman has something to write about. That's the best answer. By the way, speaking of Dream and Gaiman, I've been watching Sandman. I have seen 8 of the 10 episodes so far. I was very skeptical. Sandman is, in my opinion, either the best or one of the best comic book series that's ever been written. And I was really worried that they weren't going to get the Sandmanness, if that makes any sense, of the comic book to come through in the show. But they do manage to do so quite well, to my delight. It's not a perfect show. I definitely think that they did some stuff that I wouldn't necessarily have done. But if you like the Sandman comic, I would definitely suggest watching the show. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. The first half of the series, especially the first 4 episodes, to me are pretty darn good. The 5th episode gets a little bit of bottle episode issues. 6th episode, one of the best. Really, really good. And then 7 and 8 have been good, but stumble a little bit over some of the pacing. But I'm thinking that 9 and 10 are probably going to wrap it up. And at this point, even though I haven't seen the last 2 episodes, I do hope that they make more of it, because I think it's been quite good. Definition of treat. Transitive verb. To deal with in speech or writing, or to expound. To present or represent artistically, or to deal with. So what does... Yeah, so I would guess that what it's asking, like, what does psychology deal with? You've been listening to the audio description. It's been good. Well, that's cool. Gaiman exists so that dreams have somebody to write about them. Hey, there we go. If you want to see the Pupple or the Pupper, you're welcome to. We do not give her free T words, and I can't even say the whole word, because if I do, she'll get excited. My wife usually watches the stream up front in the living room, and if I said the T word, the dog, who's probably up there right beside my wife, would get very excited about it. The dog is getting a little bit chunky, so we have been restricting her T words. We do not give her unlimited T words. So I know that Watson gets kibble thrown out at him. Okay, so what about treats? Like, oh crap, no, I said it. Like that. Maybe she didn't hear me. The one thing that frustrates me about Gaiman stuff is that it all feels very unfocused. It just kind of meanders through quaint ideas, but there doesn't seem like there's a strong narrative push through it all. I can see how you would get that. And I think that the answer to that specifically in the course of Sandman is that's part of it. And I think that the sort of flowing from idea to idea thing is actually a mechanism of the work that's supposed to mimic things that happen in dreams, right? Because I don't know if you ever had the dreams like I do, but good gracious, like I can be dreaming about one thing and then shift to something completely different, or some absolutely bizarre, inane thing happens, and it's all just like jumbled up mishmash in my head because my brain is a mess. So I think that's probably part of it. I think that he does that on purpose. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Yeah. I think that's probably right. If you read any of his novels, like if you've read Stardust, that's beginning to end. You'll get that that there's a straight narrative there. Or if you read American Gods, you can see a clear narrative there. Or Anansi Boys, you can get the beginning to end arc kind of thing going. The comic of Sandman is definitely floaty and flowy, but I do again think that's all purpose. Okie doke. Other questions, comments, ideas? The only gaming you've read is American Gods, but you've been slacking. I mean, American Gods is a great book. I really appreciate how the mythology was brought into that. Speaking of mythology, Gaiman about 5 years ago, or 6 years ago now, I guess, published a translation of the Edda, which was quite good. Now, be aware that he took a lot of liberties with some of the wording, and he definitely anglicized some of the stories. But if you read this translation with the understanding that you're reading something written by Gaiman and not something that's necessarily supposed to be purely mythological, it's a good experience. Anansi Boys. Time to Google. You've only read the Book of Anansi. So the Anansi Boys is a sequel to American Gods, and it follows the exploits of the sons of Mr. Nancy. And it's a really, really weird book. Really weird book. They are the American versions of the gods, so it works. Yeah. Alrighty. I think it is time to go ahead and go do a raid. So I think we're just going to go and raid our friend the Cave Geek. It has been a little bit of time since we've raided him, and the only other person that is really around are the person that we raided the last time and the time before that. So we'll go see Cave, and that's great because Cave's a good streamer. So there's a TV adaptation in the works, apparently for Amazon Prime. Really? Of the Anansi Boys? Oh, that'll be interesting. I don't know. Ugh, that's going to be weird. But anyway, I'll watch it. Probably eventually. There's too much stuff on the list. So much stuff on the list. All right. So let's go raid Cave. If you've been around, you'll know Cave Geek. He is an artist that does stuff in lots of different ways, specifically specializing in primitive tools and tactics and methods. He's a great dude, a good friend. And the next time that you'll definitely see me, well, I shouldn't say definite. The next time that I am expecting to stream for sure is Tuesday next week for a viewer request episode. I hope that I can get everything ready by that point and have it going. I'm going to be honest, though. I am behind when it comes to work, and there's a substantial chance that I'll have to do work over the weekend, which might cut into my ability to do viewer request preparation stuff. So I don't know, but I hope I can stream on Tuesday. And then, of course, we'll be back around for Thursday. But until then, I hope you all have a wonderful night. Show some love to Cave. And show some love for yourself, right? Take care of yourselves. Be good to yourselves. And I will see you next time. Take it easy.